Hello and welcome to another episode of That 60s Recording Podcast, the podcast that has conversations inspired by the golden era of recording. You'll no doubt already know who the guest is today because you'll have seen it on the podcast notes or title, but I'm very, very, very excited to have spoken with Ted Fletcher, who is the owner of, or was the founder of Alice recording desks in 1969. But before that, he had an extensive career recording as a backing vocalist for Joe Meek, and also building the KPM studio on Denmark Street. And just had a fascinating career, absolutely fascinating career. I mean, just being a backing vocalist for Joe Meek would be enough to warrant having a conversation with him. But the fact that he's gone on to have such an unbelievable career at the forefront of audio technology is gobsmacking, completely gobsmacking. And as is so often the case, he's such a humble chap. He's so lovely. We could have talked for another hour and I'm sure he would have been completely fine with it. He's just an inspirational, real go-getter and really intelligent and just such a privilege to speak with him. So we discuss his early career working with Joe Meek before building the studio at KPM and then going to start at the Alice Recording Company. And then, of course, he went on to start the Joe Meek brand of outboard equipment, and we discussed that and kind of what happened in between all of those things. And then recently in 2019, the Alice Company has resurfaced, and he is a director of that company now, and they're bringing back products again. So we kind of talk about the whole journey right up into that modern day, and there's some exciting projects that are also coming forward, sort of reinvigorating old brand names, which we discuss at the end of what will be the second episode. So yeah, incredibly happy to and excited to have spoken with Ted. So we'll just dive straight in. Here we go, Ted Fletcher. So I thought it would be interesting to start if you want to just we dive right in.
Okay, well, start where you like.
Well, with your experiences in singing in Denmark Street, essentially. So did you train? I read that you trained as a civil engineer. Was that before you started in music?
You start with a difficult question.
Sorry.
I started as a civil engineer only because when I was doing my A-levels and at school, I sort of was at a bit of a loose end, and I wasn't particularly interested in anything except always interested in taking things apart, and particularly electrical things. And my father was involved with he worked for the Ministry of Aviation, and he was involved with the development of the Mosquito aircraft.
Oh wow!
Oddly enough, peculiarly, in doing development work on glues.
Okay.
Because the Mosquito was in fact glued together. It was it was made of plywood.
Wow.
It was all glued together. Anyway, but he was very interested in electronics, and in an amateur way, and I became interested in electronics. And at the same time, that sort of melded together with interest in music because of records, record players, things like that when I was very young. And so I was interested in music from a very, very early age. In fact, my parents were very keen on getting me to learn musical instruments. And so, in fact, I started to learn the piano when I was 4.
Wow.
And the violin when I was 5. And I never really stopped. So that became, music was a part of my life right from the time I was, before I can remember.
What was what sort of music was going on in your household? What were your parents listening to?
Again, this is it's sort of interesting. My father was very keen on the works on what he thought, and probably what everyone thought, were Negro spirituals.
Mm-hmm.
And but in reality, 90% of them were written by a white bloke,
right,
in America, who'd never been to the South. That was they were written by Foster, and he wrote a huge number of these very popular songs back in those days. We listened to some classical music as well, but I was involved very early on. Again, got coerced into joining choirs and singing, and so that became, a part of it. So obviously, because of that, I learned to read music again very, very early on, and so singing, became a part of my life.
And how did that progress into sort of getting session work? I'm always quite curious as to how, the starts of all of this.
Yeah, how people get in. Yes,
yeah.
That's right. It's usually to do with a family connection or some sort of introduction.
Yes,
that's true. Well, in fact, the way it worked was that purely as an amateur, and at the time it was, we were amateurs completely. I mean, we were nothing to do with the profession at all. Myself and my brother sort of decided, we started to sing pieces of music from the Middle Ages, some early music, mm-hmm. and we got very good at reading it, at actually reading the dots.
Yes,
and sight reading,
which in singing is really difficult. I mean, it's one thing doing it on an instrument.
I don't find it difficult, but yeah, that's true. Yes. Anyway, and I was involved also with playing musical instruments, because I was playing at that time. I was also playing the clarinet in a trad band, and now when was it? It was when I was getting together with the lady who became my wife, Barbara.
Yeah.
I met her. She was a singer, and I met her when I was playing the clarinet in a trad band, and she could sing. She was very, very good. And so the three of us, myself, my brother, and Barbara, formed a little group, and she came in with us and started singing madrigals and stuff like that. And we thought it would be fun to make a sort of a very amateur stage act, mm-hmm. which we did. And it was like a little variety act, run a little piece that ran sort of 2 or 3 minutes, that's all. And we'd go on stage and sing something fairly clever and crack a couple of jokes, and that was it, you see. So that was fun. At the time, we were living in near Reading, near Wokingham, mm-hmm. And so we thought, let's enter a talent contest. So we did. We entered a talent competition run by the local paper, and we won it. And that was nice. And the first prize was a week at Butlins.
Amazing.
I know, it's one of those where the first prize is a week at Butlins, the second prize is 2 weeks at Butlins. So anyway, we duly went to Butlins in all innocence, not realizing, of course, that what Butlins were doing was they were recruiting free entertainment in quite a big way. So whilst at Butlins, we carried on with competitions and kept winning, and ended up in London at a theatre in London, where there was the big final competition to find the best act, and we came second.
Okay.
The reason we came second was that the group that came first was a band called the Original Checkmates.
Okay.
And the keyboard player with the Original Checkmates is Alan Hawkshaw.
Oh, wow.
Now, Alan, during a rehearsal, Alan came to us. We were rehearsing on stage. This is before the final show. Mm-hmm. And he said, it would be a bit fun to let me have a sing with you. and we said, yeah, sure. You know, we were terribly green. We really didn't know anything about the music industry at all at the time. And anyway, he joined us for a while and said, would you be interested in meeting my recording manager? So I said, yeah, it'd be fun. You know, we'd do that. He said, it's a man called Joe Meek. So we said, yeah, great. So anyway, a couple of days later, I was on the phone to Joe Meek because he'd phoned me. And it seemed that he was in a bit of a spot. He needed some backing vocals on some recordings. We went to London and really that was the beginning. That was it. From that moment on, we started working with Joe Meek 2 or 3 times a week.
Fantastic. So this is kind of like 61, 62, is it?
1962. Yeah, that's right. It's just when Telstar had just hit number 1, and we made a great, must have been, I believe it was about 150 singles, actually. Wow. In the end. We recorded loads and loads of stuff. And everybody who was around at that time, we worked with.
So, I mean, just because I'm curious, I suppose you must have been working with Clem Catini on drums a lot.
Oh, yes. And, working with Clem.
Who would have been playing? Vic Flick playing guitar.
Brian Bennett, Vic Flick, yeah, mm-hmm. all the name, session players, yes.
Oh, fantastic!
Oh, yes.
What was so? Were you working at Joe's Holloway Road studio? Or,
yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And what was how? You know, when I spoke to Clem about this sort of time, and he discussed sort of hanging out in Denmark Street and getting called for sessions, and you know, what was sort of day-to-day life for you when, you know, around that time?
Well, it was hectic because I was trying to hold down the job as a civil engineer.
Oh, alongside all of this, wow.
yeah, actually, yes. But mind you, very quickly I tracked it in. I decided I'd much rather be driving up to London in my new second-hand Jaguar rather than sit in an office in Camberley designing drainage systems.
Yeah, I know which one I'd choose.
Yeah. So, mind you, drainage system design was I found it very interesting because it was I've always been fascinated with mathematics. Mm-hmm. Anyway. Life was hectic, but I stopped doing that civil engineering quite quickly, and became a professional musician. Almost immediately, I was introduced to one of the executives at Keith Prowse Music in Denmark Street. Mm-hmm. And who found out that I'd been playing around with doing recordings at home, and they asked me if I would like to do some work in a little recording studio that they sort of had. Mm-hmm. When I went and looked, it was just a bare room really on the ground floor in 21 Denmark Street, and again, to cut a long story short, I built a studio there. Myself, you know, literally put the stuff up on the walls and made put together bits of timber to make ducting for air conditioning and all the whole bit, everything, and then started to design the electronic equipment to go in it.
So had you, before being approached by KPM, were you interested in had you built anything yourself up to that point? Or
Oh yes, I'd built when I was at school. I built a very early tape recorder. Actually made it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, this is when I was about 14, I suppose it was. Aided by my father, I couldn't have done it on my own. But we had it and it worked. It wasn't very good, but it worked. But then after that, I had been playing around with experimenting with microphone amplifiers and bits of stuff that I'd bought in junk shops in London. And it all sort of developed from that, really.
It seems a bit of a really great time to be interested in that sort of stuff. I mean, there's lots of ex-military equipment from, yes. I was supposing from World War II that was, that was hanging around and you could take them apart quite easily. Now if I was to open up something electronic, it would just be printed circuit board, or I wouldn't even know what I was looking at. And
that's right. Nowadays it's very difficult because it's it's a throwaway society.
Mm.
But in those days, miniature valves had just come in at the end of the war, and that was an exciting time. And so all my early stuff was designs associated with valves. So my first mixer, in fact, was valve based.
Okay.
I
didn't realize that, because the Alice stuff, which we'll get onto, is famously transistor based, but whereas
yes.
So you were building sort of valve mixing consoles before that.
Well, only in a very, very small way.
Yeah,
I'd built one or two bits of consoles with channels that were based on valves. Yes, and in fact, the first console I made for that we used in Denmark Street was valve based.
How did it feel being asked to put together a studio? Was it a significant step up for you? Was it obviously it would have been exciting, but was it sort of exciting but also quite intimidating, the idea of having to put together a full studio?
Not really intimidating, no. It was fun. I just don't think like that.
Okay.
If somebody, there are a few instances. For example, there was. I know I'm sort of jumping ahead in terms of time.
Yeah.
But in 1974, I think it was, I had a phone call from a chap called John Lumsden, who was the chief engineer of the To Be radio station in Glasgow, and who said to me, he said, "Do you know anything about radio production mixers?" And I said, "Not a lot, but I can learn quickly." He said, "I've got a requirement." He said, for a production mixer for a commercial studio, and I need it quick. So I said, "All right, I'll be with you tomorrow morning." So I caught a flight up and met John Lumsden. And I had no idea what this mixer, what it entailed, and I learned very quickly. And consequently, but it wasn't intimidating at all. But it was, I suppose, I had bags of confidence, and
you relished the challenge of it more than anything.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, yeah. And it wasn't no big deal. And if I cocked it up, it wouldn't really matter.
Yeah. So how did that develop onto? So Alice started in 1969.
Yes, that's right.
What was so between between sort of working at Keith Prowse and then starting Alice, how did that progression happen?
Well, one sort of elided into the other because Joe Meek fell out with me along with everybody else at the end of his life. And I wish I had the letter actually, because it was a 4-page rant that he wrote to me in handwritten, accusing me of spying on him, taking his customers. I mean, this is really, it's so ridiculous because I was just little Ted Fletcher.
Yeah,
I was absolutely nobody, and he was a major record producer.
Yeah,
and but at the time he was accusing the engineers at Decca of bugging his studio all the time. He was certain that they had put microphones in the walls.
Wow.
And so and he accused me of stealing his customers and setting up a studio in opposition to him, which is it was just a complete nonsense, you know. But then, you know, the guy was sick. It was it was very sad. Yeah. So, but the move from KPM. It was a question of people were asking me to build things.
Yeah.
Generally, little bits and pieces, mic amps and compressors and equalizers, in a very small way, and it all got slightly out of hand. And I met up with some guys in Windsor, and they were running a little studio in Windsor, and they had a couple of projects on of building equipment themselves, and so I went in there and helped them with the design work and with the building, and that became Alice.
It seems that I'm really interested in the sort of the way that gear was perceived at that time. I mean, obviously you have the big studios like Abbey Road and Trident and lots of those studios who are, you know, they're using in-house mixing consoles that were built in-house, but they've got, you know, Fairchild limiters and you know, Pultec was starting out.
Yes.
But they, you know, it's not like now where the market's completely flooded with different brands of gear. So the idea of building, you know, of studios having hand built and custom built equipment doesn't seem out of place back then. You know, what was everybody quite happy just using things that you'd put together?
Oh yes, and it was a very fluid situation. You know, there was people were trying out different things all the time, and I mean, I worked with at that period. I was starting to work with because I was able to meet a lot of engineers and influential people in the music business when I worked at KPM, because Denmark Street is the centre. So you know, studios like Olympic, IBC. I was very familiar with the engineers and a lot of the owners of these studios, and Lansdowne.
Yes,
And so, yeah, it was a very fluid time, you know. At that, and what started to happen was at Alice, we started to get orders for initially for large consoles for film studios.
Okay.
And we built a very big series of consoles from a film production company in Malta, which was very early on. And then shortly after that, a lot of the impresarios in London who were setting up new shows were after new theatre mixers, and we got into that in a big way. And so that ended up with building the 106-channel console for Jesus Christ Superstar.
Wow.
Which was, I think, the largest console in London at the
time. So these, at this time, it's all sort of custom orders. You hadn't done any,
yes,
kind of mass-produced anything.
Everything custom.
Who came up with the name Alice and the rabbit logo? I'm interested.
I did. I came up with the idea of Alice because I just love the book. I think Alice in Wonderland's a wonderful book, and Johnson was a sort of hero of mine because he was a very bright bloke. But that's where the name came from.
Fantastic.
The rabbit actually was an invention of our finance director, Byron Davis, who was a drummer, and he was the drummer with Tony Brain. Isn't it awful? Just sudden blank.
It happens to all of us.
No.
It will come back. It will appear at some stage.
Yeah. Who now lives in Australia.
Okay.
Anyway, he toured as a drummer professionally. My production director was Eric Keane, who in fact was a bass player. He played bass with the original band, which became Deep Purple.
Oh yes.
So that was he was a good player, or he is a good player. He's still around. He lives down in Torquay. Unfortunately, the others are gone. The Byron died a couple of years ago, and the other member of the quartet was Chris Bannum, who was a keyboard player. He toured professionally as well. Anyway, where was I?
We were talking about the rabbit character.
The rabbit character. That's right. Yes. No, that was Byron's idea. Who then got a local in Windsor artist to do a sketch, and that ended up as the rabbit. And it's lovely. I mean, and now that is, of course, the logo that we have today.
Where I love the idea that we've got, there's kind of that balance between sort of home built equipment. So I'm talking in the early 70s here, and then these huge big consoles that were coming out. And there's you've spoken in other interviews and on your online stuff about that big gap in the market. Where did how did you sort of recognize and come across that? I'm talking specifically about the 828 mixer and how that kind of gap in the market came about, and you spotted it and thought, well, people, there is a demand for not hugely expensive but very high quality equipment that's accessible for people who are slightly more.
Yeah, I think that came about partly because of the advent of local radio and how that, local radio started in 1974 with Glasgow, and we went on then, Alice, we became the company really at the time to do turnkey operations to build radio stations. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we needed every time were several little radio production mixers and outside broadcast stuff, and it seemed like a good idea at the time. And in fact, that's what happened. That's how the 828 was developed. It evolved over a fairly long period, probably sort of 4 or 5 years, actually. It started with a mixer called the AD62, which was not very good, not very clever, and which was in a wooden surround box. Okay. And then there was one of those key moments was that I remember a meeting in the finance office at at Alice, where we were moaning about the fact that we weren't getting many orders for small mixers at the time. And I think it was Eric Keane, who said, well, the reason is because it's not heavy enough. And we said, oh, yeah, Eric is like that. He's a very direct guy and usually right. And we said, okay, well, we'll build it. We'll make it out of 1.6 millimeter steel. And we'll try that. So we built a couple of prototypes and you went to pick them up and they were, like bricks. I mean, really heavy. And everyone loved them. It was great. Oh, and we started selling them and they absolutely sold like mad. And we couldn't make them fast enough. And in the end, we were supplying very strange people. I mean, I supplied I think 4 mixers to the army in Singapore.
Oh, wow.
And they were used in the jungle. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They went all over the world and they went everywhere. And you could run a truck over these things.
Yeah.
They were fine.
Well, I mentioned on the when we spoke last week on the phone, I've just got in fact it was Bobby Graham's old 828.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I've just got and it's it is really heavy and it's it is really robust and you can sort of you feel like you've got something very significant, which is there's something about that in audio that sort of weight behind it feels gives you confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. And really that's become a watchword of what I do nowadays. All my stuff is fairly heavy.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Oh, cool.
it's quite a lump.
Yes.
Brought the right way up.
Well, you want to feel like you've bought something. If you spent some money on something, you want to feel like you've bought something that's weighty.
Yeah. And it is made of steel.
Yeah. That's something that's carried through right till now. I love it.
Oh yes. Yeah.
So that kind of boom lasted for about 10 years or so, didn't it? I suppose. And
the A28.
Well, the sort of Alice company, and before you.
What happened was, I mean that did it went on for quite a while. What happened was.
There we have it, part 1 of my conversation with Ted Fletcher. I hope you were making copious amounts of notes during that episode, and I would recommend you go to TFPRO's, that's Ted Fletcher Pro, so tfpro.com. There's loads of information on that website. Not only is there a shop that we kind of discussed in the second episode, he hand builds equipment still. He's 81, I mean, that's unbelievable. And there's a whole section of masterclasses on there. I've posted about them on my Instagram before, but he did some lectures at the University of Glamorgan quite a few years ago, and he's put the lecture notes up on his website, and they are just amazing. They're really, really great. So go and check those out, and I've printed them all off so I can sit and read them in the comfort of my armchair. I hate reading on a screen for some reason, but anyway. Go and check those out because they're very, very cool, and to learn from somebody of Ted's stature is pretty special. You can also go and check out the Alice website, which off the top of my head I don't know. Let me see if I can just quickly find it online. Oh, I am already on it. So it's just alice.co.uk. You can check out some of the history of the consoles there and see what the company's up to. But again, we talk about that in the second episode. So yes, thank you for listening, and that just leaves me to say, if you'd like to contact me, my email address is joe@allyouneedisdrums.com, and you can visit that website, allyouneedisdrums.com, where there is a shop. You can buy music I've been involved with. You can also buy a lovely enamel mug featuring the brand of the podcast, which you can drink tea and coffee out of, or keep pens in, or the little microphone extension clip things. That's what I tend to keep in some of mine. And my little girls, as you might have seen on Instagram, put some jelly in them recently, they make pretty good jelly cups. Right, anyway, I'm waffling. That just leaves me to say a huge thank you to Joe Kane for the intro and outro music, to Adam Mallet for the artwork he supplies, and to Rory Hancock for doing all of the legwork and editing and mixing and uploading of this podcast. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate you for listening. Thanks very much, and I will be back next week with more from Ted Fletcher. Goodbye!